Hey y'all, it's Bonita from the Big Easy, and I have the pleasure of introducing to you today my mentor and my business partner, Connor Steinbrook.
What's going on?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's great. Thank you so much for coming on today. And I honestly really appreciate you coming here and spending this time with me on my channel. I am so excited to introduce you to my audience because I have the pleasure of spending 3 or 4 days with you a week. I want you to impart some of your knowledge on them as well. Connor is a full-time residential real estate entrepreneur. He's the top 1% influencer in our company, and he is the founder of the WolfPack, which is the fastest growing organization at eXp, growing about 120, 150 agents a month. And right now the WolfPack has approaching 2,200 agents, right, Connor?
Yep, it looks like we'll probably actually hit that today is what it looks like. So hopefully today we'll cross that 2,200 agent count, and a lot of wolves popping up all around North America and now around the world. So it's getting exciting. We're getting up there.
That's amazing. And I've actually added 3 wolves myself in the last week and a half.
That's right. Yep, you're doing great. You guys are
growing. Well, also, guys, Connor is the #1 residential real estate investor in our company of over 84,000 agents. He is the founder of Investor Army, and he's built the #1 residential real estate investment YouTube channel in Texas, which also happens to be top 15 in the country.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Connor also is so selfless that he's created courses for us that have helped agents in our company, including new agents, become millionaires. So welcome, Connor. I appreciate you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for asking me on here. I'm always grateful, you get to spend time with you, and just appreciate all you're doing for you and your agents, and just looking forward to seeing what you guys can do over the next coming years, and excited to help in any way I can.
Well, I appreciate you because you're always supporting me, and it just floors me that I can just pick up the phone and call you at the drop of a dime, and you're always there for me. So thank you.
You're more than welcome. Yeah.
Guys, as I stated, Connor is one of the top investors in Texas. So Connor, why did you decide to join eXp?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I get asked that a lot. I was highly focused on the investment side of the business, and I came up in the investing space, wholesaling, flipping houses, buying rentals, doing owner financing, land deals, mobile home deals, and things like that for about 6, 7 or so years before I actually got my real estate license. Now, along the way, I kind of been back and forth on this, just like a lot of investors. Do I get my license or do I not? And every now and then what would happen is I'd have a bunch of leads coming into the office, and they'd be like a $500,000 house, and they'd want $525,000 for it. Or basically they want full price, right? You can't do anything with a transaction like that with a lot of the investment side of the business. You need equity in the property to do most exit strategies. So every time that happened, I'd say, okay, well, what's the amount of a commission I'm losing here? Does it make sense to go get my real estate license? And I'd say, yes, let me do it. And then I go and look at the time obligation and stress and headache to actually go do it. And it was just a lot. So I never actually followed through. And then what happened was a lot of people started reaching out to you about eXp Realty as I built my Investor Army channel, saying, hey, I want you to take a look at this, but they didn't know I wasn't a licensed real estate agent. So for 2 years, I had people kind of blowing me up, trying to bring me to eXp. And I'd look at the model, I give someone 5 or 10 minutes and be like, okay, I can see why it's of interest for them. I'm sure they're going to do well. It's just something that I'm not too interested in because I never really opened up my mind to look at it seriously and give them an opportunity to really show me what was going on and look at the math. I was just kind of appeasing people, if that made sense, because I was convinced in my mind it wouldn't make sense for me. So after about 2.5 years of blowing eXp off, I was speaking at an investment conference in Mississippi, and the #1 guy at our company was speaking at the same event. And so the event promoter put us up in a small Airbnb property for like 3 or 4 days. And that is when I kind of couldn't escape. And he showed me that he's making 6 figures a month in residual income. And that was the residual income with his real estate license. And I was like, how is this possible? And then he explained the revenue share model at eXp. And I was basically like that scene from Wolf of Wall Street where he's like, you proved to me you're making $72K a month.
Quit my job right now and I work for you.
I was like, basically, if you prove to me that you built a 6-figure a month residual income with no debt, no tenants, no termites, no back-end management, I'll go through with this and get my real estate license and build a team all across the country. So that was one thing. I saw the income possibility firsthand from someone that I knew was telling me the truth. Second thing is I was building my social media following, which to me made sense to be able to leverage a pre-existing dollar spent and time spent outside my local market, because I had people follow me all around the country and all around the world, just like you do on your social media. And this allowed me to now tap into that and work with partners and friends in different markets. And then the last one was the way that the compensation model is structured at eXp naturally is going to be inclined for most investors to see it as an investment model. And the reason for this is because there's 3 different ways to create income. I talk about this a lot. There's active income, there's residual income, and then there's income that comes in through equity models. So the reason why people struggle to create wealth as an agent is because they're doing things just that create active income, meaning sales. That's an income that if your time stops, your income stops. working a job, flipping houses, wholesaling, selling real estate. What happens is if you get sick, tired, children, grandchildren, life liabilities, if you can't trade your time to create the income and you just stop working, so does your income. So what I realized was on the investment side of the business, that equity ownership is what gives you the ability to grow your net worth without your time allocated to grow it, except for a small amount on the front side and a small amount on the back side. So what I mean is, let's say you're driving down the highway and unfortunately you get hit in a car wreck and you go into a coma. This is the example I've been giving people lately. Before that, you bought a couple stocks and you bought a couple rental properties. While you're asleep for 12 months, the market went up and the stock went up 3x, the rental property went up 50% or whatever it is. Guess what happened? Your net worth grew without your time allocated to grow it. This is why it's important to understand what equity can do, is it can grow while you're not allocating time. That's why it can build massive wealth, because your time is avoided. And then the next one is residual income. Residual income gives you time freedom and money freedom. So there's a big difference between someone that makes $250,000 a year through an active income like sales, and then through $250,000 a year like revenue share at eXp, or through rental income, because this is built ahead of time. So the difference is the time being traded. $250,000 income, $250,000 income. But here they're working 60, 80-hour weeks. Here they have all their time every single day to go hang out with their kids, to travel the world. So when I saw eXp, pretty much every traditional brokerage has one income stream, just active only, to be able to sell houses. So if you drew a T-chart, investors on this side have active income, residual income, and equity models. So they have active income through flipping and wholesaling, residual income through owner financing, rentals, and passive money lending, and then commercial properties like multifamily, things like that, storage units. And then they have cash flow from, the rental. So they have all three over here, if that makes sense. Equity ownership, rental cash flow, and active income. And on this side, if an agent's doing both sides of business, sales and investing, they just have active income over here. They don't have an equity model and they don't have residual income. So what I saw with the eXp model was we're publicly traded. There's 5 different ways to acquire stock in the company. So that filled an equity component over here. And then I saw the revenue share model and it built a residual income component. So on both sides of the business now, a real estate agent and an investor, if at eXp, when I saw this, was the first time someone could have all 3 ways of creating income on a national footprint using technology to basically on both sides of business capture every lead for the highest and best use and efficient use of that lead coming into office. So no matter what lead comes into the office now, if I moved my license or got a license and came to eXp, regardless of price point or equity position, I knew exactly what to do with it and I knew the highest and best use of the exit strategy. So I saw eXp as a wealth creation brokerage model that was built for investor-minded individuals, entrepreneurial-minded individuals, and I saw that as a big benefit to get a license and go do it. And that's what I did. I went and got my license and kind of the rest is history. But that was one of the biggest decision-making factors for me, was the 3 income stream side of the business model on this side that I can now think of it like an investment business, having wealth creation opportunities, and then the big ability to touch into pre-existing efforts with dollars and money spent on building my social media following, not locally, but nationally and internationally, that I could leverage that now. But those are some of the big decision-making factors on my side. And then the big one was the revenue share model. It was just a no-brainer for me. That was what I was really focused on when I came here.
Okay. And we all have heard, or most of us have heard about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad cash flow quadrant, but you created the wealth quadrant. Can you tell me how that came about?
Yep. So kind of came about in a weird way, I guess. So I had a unique background. I went off to college in 2003. I'm here in Dallas. I went to the University of Oklahoma and I put $20 into a poker site for fun, and accidentally I ran it into a small fortune. And when I was in college, I became one of the top online poker players in the world. I finished out college for my parents. Even though I didn't want to, I wanted to drop out and just travel the world and play poker because all I needed was my laptop. And what happened was on April 15, 2011, if you look at the historical record and go on the internet, there was what's called Black Friday. And this is when Full Tilt Poker and Poker Stars, those big websites, were shut down. And what was going on was government regulation issues, from what I understand. Still a lot of confusion over all this, but these websites were offshore on islands, from what I understand, regulated by something like the Alderney Gaming Commission, if I remember correctly. And when a government doesn't have the ability to get what they want, what do? They either regulate and figure out how to tax it the way they want or get their hands in it, or they completely crush it and destroy it and get rid of it completely. So that's kind of what happened. And I got caught up into a weird situation where I woke up one day, I was printing money, had a great life, and I had one income stream. And then the next day I woke up and I had no way of creating an income, and my entire life disappeared. And it wasn't just that my life disappeared, it was that my entire relationship circle, all my friends disappeared, because all our lives disappeared at the same time. So it wasn't like I just went bankrupt or made a mistake. It was taken from me, and it was taken from all of us. So it's a complete difference of kind of, hey, I made a mistake and lost it, versus, hey, it was stolen from us, is kind of what we all felt like. So it was a very tough time for me. And what happened was I made a bunch of bad decisions. I gambled off a bunch of money on blackjack and craps. And before I knew it, I put myself in a situation where I was on top of the world, where I was now having to move back home with my parents. And this was a very tough time for me because obviously I had everything at my fingertips. Life was going great. And then something out of my control took it away from me. During this time, I had a lot of reflection on what I was going to do in life, where I wanted to go, because I needed to find a new path in life. And I decided that I was going to go figure out how to become wealthy, if that's what I wanted to have, because I realized a lot of my stress and frustration, just like a lot of y'all's, comes from not having the financial means to be able to do what I want in life. I wanted to go where I wanted, when I wanted, buy what I wanted without looking at price tags, and also be able to help anybody and everybody I could. And so I was trying to figure out how to create wealth, and I came across the path of self-development. I talked about this on my YouTube channel. I came across Napoleon Hill, and then Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, all the good ones, right? So I went down self-development, which is also when I started reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad with Cash Flow Quadrant with Robert Kiyosaki. And what happened was I decided I was going to go into real estate investing for the reasons we just talked about with the ways to create income. But what I was also doing was, this is very important to understand, if you're trying to win at anything, you study the people that win at the highest level of what you're trying to do. And so for me, if I want to create wealth, why not look at the wealthiest people in the world? And that's when I was saying, okay, what do wealthy people do and what do wealthy people have? That's when I started reading books on industrialists and big time, world wealth creators, John Rockefellers and Chase and Vanderbilt and Andrew Carnegie and like all the big ones. And I wanted to see kind of from generations past how they did it, where upbringing was from. And so I started reading biographies. So when you know how people became who they became, you can kind of recreate the path on how they got there and also the things that they're doing. And what I came across along the journey was 4 things that came together that every single person that I'd seen that had massive wealth had all 4 components. And along the way, I was teaching this because later I started a consulting company. And I used to just teach this in bullet point form. 1, 2, 3, 4. You need these 4 components. And the problem is it's hard to get people to remember things unless you attach it to something that they can remember more easily. An emotion, a color, an image, a quadrant. So it's not an accident that Cash Flow Quadrant took off the way it did, because he could have put those 4 components, 1, 2, 3, 4, into a talking point presentation and it would never become what it did. So I picked that up from this understanding. And then I was going through kind of my life's path. And this is kind of how it came about. So I had one income stream and I lost it. And even though it was a great one, it didn't matter if I wasn't the one performing anymore. It's taken from me. So what I realized was I will never go through this situation in my life again. So the first corner of the quadrant, and I said, if it works well for Robert Kiyosaki, let me put these into a quadrant. So I just kind of modeled success, which is what you should think about modeling success. Mm-hmm. So the top left part of the quadrant is multiple streams of income. Now, this is the important thing to understand. You hear people talk about MSI, multiple streams of income, as a way to increase their income. That's what the normal psychology or understanding of this is, which it does if you have multiple good income streams. But if you have, let's say, 100 income streams that make $1 a year, you have $100 income. If you have one income stream that makes $1 billion a year, you're a billionaire, right? So multiple streams of income isn't primarily the main incentive from it or benefit from it to increase your income. Now, it can if you have good ones, but what it really is an insurance policy that if the one that you're using to provide your lifestyle goes away, you're not in a bad spot having to move back home with mom and dad like I did, if that makes sense, right? So you should have at least 3 income streams. The reason why you should have 3 is because if you have 2 and you lose one, you're right back to the same risky position when you have 1. When you have that one, the external pressure that you live under is much higher because you know you're at risk. If, let's say, you're a production agent and all of a sudden you're selling houses, but you're not selling as many, or you had a job and you're worried about getting laid off or getting fired. So that stress builds up. When you have 3 income streams that if one goes away and you have 2 others that are coming in, you have time to go build a 3rd, 4th, and 5th one back. Most people have between 5 and 7 income streams. So the first one was I realized what happened to me because I didn't protect myself before with multiple streams of income. I needed to have more than 1 income stream. So that was how I came up with that one. The second way I came up with the top corner box on the top right is the duplicatable component part of business. Every single person that I ever met that had a high net worth had something of leverage outside themselves. They weren't a poker player like me, meaning if I was sick that day, if I was tired that day, if I just had a fight with my girlfriend that day or whatever's going on, emotional or parents, I had to do everything. It was on my shoulders. If I just lost a bunch of money the week before, it didn't matter. So it was all relying on me. It's a lot of pressure and it's a very stressful life. And I think a lot of people are fixated on this solopreneur mentality. It doesn't exist. So if you guys are young kids watching this, solopreneurs do not exist the way that they're being told you that they do to sell you something. You need people. The more people you have around you, the more leverage through duplication you have, the bigger your business is going to be. So what happened to me, Bonita, was after online poker went out, there's a big casino here at the border of Oklahoma and Texas. I was driving up to WinStar Casino and Choctaw Casino to try to play poker as a living as a live poker player. Mm-hmm. Now, since I used to play a lot of tables on the internet at a smaller dollar amount, I was playing the highest stakes games that they could play at the casino. So while I was sitting on these tables, some people have $5, $10, $20 plus $1,000 on the table at a time. Well, guess what's happening here? Some are poker players, but some are just business owners, which I didn't realize. And I had a lot of older people that I was playing poker with, these guys that would sit down there and they'd lose like 10 grand in a day and they'd still be laughing at the end of the day. And I'm like, how's this possible? Because when I lose 10 grand, I want to run into a wall and hate my life until I win it back, right?
Stay in bed for 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, it's an emotional hit. And so I was watching some people lose a hand and they'd have the normal tilt or mental frustration. And I'd watch watch these other people lose big hand and they'd laugh. And I'm like, so the money doesn't matter to these people. They have all the time in the world to sit in the casino every day. What do these people do? Right. So I started trying, you get to sit next to people a lot at a poker table. So I find out what they did. They all owned storage units, multifamily apartment complexes, mobile home parks, things like this. A lot more in real estate, and a lot of them had duplication. They had teams, they had employees. And what I was starting to realize was I have to have leverage through duplication, something that I trade my time for as an individual to create a duplicatable component to myself. Putting myself on YouTube, multiple videos, that is duplication. Owning multiple rental properties, that is duplication. Having employees, having agents in a team. Think about 2,200 agents, that is duplication. So the second component for wealth creation is you have to do something outside yourself. Duplication through other people's money, time, or systems, or something. That's where you're going to leverage yourself outside yourself. And then the next two corners of the box on the bottom and left and right were equity models and residual income models, which we just talked about before. But I realized that equity is going to give me the ability to grow a business while I'm trading my time for active income and getting myself in more equity positions. That equity position is going to expand behind me. And then the last thing that all wealthy people have, 8-figure earners and up, is they have residual income. So they all have equity, ownership in something. They all have residual income. So they have their time to go trade their time to create a bigger net worth. They're leveraging themselves, not doing it on their own, and they all have multiple streams of income. So I just said, Robert had a good idea. So let's put it into a quadrant. And I started teaching this just in a small consulting company to people. It wasn't a big deal. And then I started getting out on podcasts and teaching this. And here we are years later. You can go to big events in different industries all across the country, and you'll see some of the top entrepreneurs in the world on stage talking about the wealth quadrant, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a big deal now.
As it never was intended to be that way, but it just kind of happened that way. And but that's kind of the story behind the wealth quadrant and how it kind of got out there. And so, but yeah, it's kind of taken off here recently.
Well, I know I hear agents tell me all the time, a couple agents that I've talked to, and they talk about, oh, well, you know what? I have residual income because, I have 2 rental units. And I've heard you say that you have the equivalent of $600 in residual income without having any upfront capital.
Yeah, I'd have to get out and calculate. It could be higher than that now. It depends on what you're calculating off like an average rental income. I mean, some people make like $100 a month on a rental property. So if you go off some calculations, it's substantially higher, but on an average rental that I have, it's getting up there. It's well up there equivalent to that. And the reason why is the scalability duplicatable component of it. So here's why people ask me, Bonita, all the time, why I'm still building the portfolio and still doing things like that, but all my time is on the organization. And the reason why is it's scalable through duplication, like we talked about, leveraging itself. So if you bring an agent over to our company, which is a lot of agents like growing companies as far as the growth model, you can either sell houses or be an entrepreneur that builds a team of agents to sell houses. If you sponsor an agent or a company that's a capping agent, meaning they're doing a little bit under $3 million in sales, the equivalent residual income you're going to earn on an annual basis is about $2,800, which is a little bit under $250 a month if you think about it like that. Now, if you look at most apartment complex investors, what are they trying to get? Right around that. Right. So what I realized was if I sponsor an agent at eXp, I didn't have to raise money. I didn't have any back-end management expenses for time or money. And if I did that, as compared to buying a rental property with my time, if I buy a rental property to buy another one, I have to raise the same amount of money, put the same time in, find the deal with the contractors, deal with the banks, front-end financing, back-end refinancing, and all the headache of doing that to create maybe the same cash flow. Whereas over here, if I bring in a great partner, someone like Bonita, right, is coming over here and she goes out and sponsors 3 agents this week. Think about that. Is that not like buying houses if you're comparing cash flow, creating cash flow? So what I saw was that it would grow much quicker over here on this side because it could grow through leverage. So that's why I put most of my time on the revenue share model, is it has the leverage component to it. On top of that, the agents that I work with sometimes bring deals for me to buy for my investment business back to me. So I'm helping them get a commission, and it's also helping me grow my other business. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I like the revenue share model, is the leverage component of it. It's not like building a rental portfolio. Now you should do both, but if you have time each day, it can't be spent on everything. So you have to have an opportunity cost of the decision where you put your time. And so what you need to do is put it to the income stream that you think has the highest scalability with the lowest risk component to it. And that's what I see the revenue share model with eXp doing for us.
And revenue share is one of the reasons why I came to the company. And I also came for the training. But why do you think so many brokers who have spent years building their businesses are now just folding up their shops and rolling their brokerages into eXp?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's fear, for one, and it's justified. They're heading into a recession and they're watching their bills go up. They're watching all the inflation happen. They're watching agents sell fewer houses right now because interest rates are going up. If you look at an independent broker right now, they have all the world rolling on their shoulders. Kind of think about when I was talking about online poker. I had everything on my shoulders. There's no one above me to actually help me. It's just on me. Whereas when you come to eXp, we're a different model. We have a 7-tier override model. So you have 7 partners helping you. The company has thousands of paid employees as a management system. So you're going to have a support system with you and above you. So what's happening is every single year, I think it's over 300 independent brokerages partner with eXp, some of them hundreds at a time. And here's some of the reasons why you're seeing so many brokers come over and work with us in our WolfPack organization. So why would someone just wrap up shop after 20 years and come on over and partner with a different company? Well, the first one is risk mitigation. They're tired of being sued, or the fear of being sued, or the headache of just even dealing with it. When you get to a sizable brokerage, it's going to happen all the time. So if you look at some of the bigger brokerages that came over here, that's one of the biggest things that they say. I was being sued all the time. I was always in court. It was just the biggest headache. And coming over to eXp would completely eliminate that side of all the frustration for me, and I wouldn't have to worry about that. So risk mitigation is one. Second one is scalability opportunities. A lot of these brokers are restricted on the business that they can grow based off the geographical location where they're building their business. So if you're a broker right now and you guys are in a market where, let's say you have 10,000 agents, 20,000, you're going to cap your growth because of the cap in market share, and it's a finite market share, if that makes sense. When you come to eXp, we're a global tech brokerage that gives you the ability to build across state and country lines. So overnight, let's say you had 10,000 agents, 20,000 in your local market. When you partner with eXp, now you're up almost 2 million agents, is what I've been told is our total global footprint of the amount of agents that we can now operate with, and we're expanding into countries every single year. Right. So now what you've done is you built your local business that you continue on running the same way that you're running it, but now you've opened up the ability to capitalize on what you couldn't capitalize before at your current brokerage model, which is your social media following that you built worldwide. So right now, you're going to have people watching your videos. You're going to have people that are subscribed to your channel, that are on your Facebook account, that follow you on Instagram, that are in different states or different countries. And that money and time spent to build us to create that attention, you're not monetizing it. So now you have a bigger footprint that you can grow through. But the big one is management expenses and management avoidance. So when you're a broker right now, if you want to scale, you have to hire an employee to come do this. Pay them 40, 50, 80K a year, whatever you're going to pay them. Instead, what brokers are seeing is they can use eXp as a management system. So for $85 a month, and then if they're doing production, they have a cap, but some don't even do production, so they're paying just the monthly fee. They have access to almost 2,000 paid employees. Now, I don't know exactly what each position's paid, but let's say they're averaging 50K, which is pretty conservatively for a corporate company. That's a $100 million employee force. So a broker can come over here to eXp, maintain their logo, maintain their team name or their company name. They're now just partnered with eXp as a system, if you want to look like powered by or brokered by. And now what do they have? They have a $100 million employee force that they pay $85 a month for. And so for our organization, every single month, we're selling give or take 1,000 houses. It's hard to tell because I can't see transactions after they're capping. They're working on that. So hopefully here soon, we're going to get some real data, but we're selling a ton of houses. I don't see paperwork. I don't see contracts. I don't write checks. I cannot be sued over these transactions. I have no CPA bill, and I'm going to do my taxes at the end of the year in a couple minutes because all I have to do is forward a 1099 to my CPA. So just the CPA bill for some of my other businesses would blow your mind, right? So think about that. All that's being avoided. Thousands of transactions being processed legally without any liability across different states and countries. And I literally pay $85 a month to have this done for me. So that's why you're seeing so many brokers come over here. Plus, they're going to have agents above them, such as ourselves, that provide tools, trainings, resources, masterminds, social media academies, and things like that, that they can offer to their agents that they didn't have to create. They can give to them. So they're going to get the benefit of the partner lines that they're joining, all the training from the company, all the benefits from the company. And now their agents have an incentive to grow their company through the revenue share model, which they didn't before. So they see accelerated growth because those 20 agents before, if they had no financial incentive to attract agents to the brokerage office, now when they come over here, they're not just 20 agents, they're 20 agents, but also potential growth leaders or agent attractors. So there's quite a few more we could go into, but there's a lot of reasons you're seeing brokerages come over here right now. And the last one is the big one, the recession. They're scared. And a lot of brokers went out of business in the last one, and eXp was birthed from the last recession, which is what people don't realize. We were literally birthed from a recession to operate through a recession. So there's nothing recession proof, but if there would be, it'd be a business model that's not operating through brick and mortar, but through a cloud-based metaverse. And so a lot of these brokers see this as a safe ship to wrap up their old one or park it at the dock and hop on this one because they see a hurricane coming and they want to get through it, and they want a big cruise ship and not a little tiny boat to kind of go through this on, if that makes sense. And they see this as a safer way to go through with lower risk because they can get rid of all their expenses that they're paying for the office and wrap this up, and also open up their scalability possibilities. And so these are just some of the reasons why you've seen a lot of our broker partners come over here that they've told me were their decision-making factors on why they came.
Yeah, I also have my broker's license, and I'm also an attorney. So
I
really, it pains me and blows my mind to think about the risk avoidance because, you're responsible and on the hook for other agents and the mistakes that they make. So
one last thing before we go on, think about, it's a real deal because when the pandemic happened, brokers at eXp, think about if you had moved your brokerage over, how much chaos did y'all have to go through? Learning new laws, understanding the fear of doing something wrong. Like I know for myself, I own property, right? So when pandemic happened, laws were changing quickly, eviction laws are changing, and I was actually scared. I mean, I let a bunch of tenants take advantage of me. It's unbelievable the amount of money I lost because of regulation changes and things like that, because I was fearful, which we talk about fear. So even though you understand it, you still face it from time to time of making a mistake because I don't have time to focus on everything closely. I'm running fast. And what if I evict someone and I did it wrong and then they sue me and it becomes a big old problem, right? So when when brokers come over here, they don't have to have all those extra thoughts in their mind, stressing them out, things that they're worried about, and all these different time obligations and dollar obligations. They can just get rid of it. They don't even have to worry about training agents on how to do forms and paperwork anymore. That's all off their plate as well. So it is important to understand that there's not just the income opportunities, there's the lifestyle opportunities for the freedom of your time, the freedom of your stress, and just so many more benefits. And we can, if you guys watch this and you want to have a conversation with Bonita and I, we'll hop on Zoom and go over all these, and we'll look at your numbers and show you how this could make sense for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really, really love, Sky Slope and the checklist, because I am an anal person and I literally would go over contracts over and over and over again to make sure that I don't make mistakes. And I don't have to do that anymore because I know that compliance is watching every single line because we're publicly traded on the NASDAQ and we have to cross all our T's and dot all our I's. And so I love the checklist where they tell you if there's something wrong and why it's wrong, and you can easily fix that. So that has saved me a lot of time in my business.
That's an absolutely, and stress for sure.
And stress, yes. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how much time I've saved by not having to do that because I don't worry about it anymore. I know probably didn't make a mistake, but if I did, they're going to catch it. So it's no big deal.
It's duplication like we talked about before. So instead of having to figure out how to build a business that you can hire all these employees that do this work for you and you pay them out of your bank account, brokers see it as much more financially intelligent just to partner with the company that's already done it and letting them use the leverage and partner with them as a system. So for $85 a month, you have eXp's management system running your business for you, which I don't think a lot of people think about. So I try to tell these brokers and even agents that come over here, you're not joining a brokerage, you're becoming an entrepreneur with an entrepreneurial opportunity to build a worldwide business that you don't have to build. It's already built for you. So it's not just you're joining a brokerage, you're joining an opportunity to create your freedom and create wealth, which is not usually done at a brokerage, which is why we're so different, which is also why we're the fastest growing brokerage in real estate history, soon to be the biggest one as well.
Right. You mentioned interest rates just a while ago, and we all know that the Feds have raised the rates the last 3 quarters in a row. So, a lot of buyers, their buying power is being reduced. How do you see the market going forward, and what can we as agents do to prepare?
I think you're going to see it start off geographically in certain areas. They're going to get hit first, and then price points get hit first a little bit differently than others. Being an investor, I have a background in looking at property valuations a lot more in detail than a homeowner would or that agents do, because they are not taking the risk that I do when I buy a property, when you're selling someone else's property, if that makes sense, because you can't go bankrupt selling another person's property, but you can if you buy the bad deal and flip it wrong. So what you're going to see first is usually what happens historically when a correction happens is on the East Coast and the West Coast, you're going to kind of like a pre-tremor to an earthquake. You're going to have that pre-tremor come first. That's kind of like you start to see the news stories popping up on the East and West Coast, California and Vegas, New York, and you start to see property values dropping. Then usually 6 to 12 months later, sometimes a little longer, you start to see it in the center part of the country, Texas and these internal cities. It kind of comes in if you look at that. Second thing is, so be watching for that, on these coasts, East and West Coast, if you're seeing these types of, news articles and things coming up. Second thing is the price point that you're working. What happens in a recession? Well, obviously people are tight on money. So what you're going to see is on like the highest price points, probably not going to affect things because billionaires are going to have billionaire money anyways, no matter what happens. In fact, most of them got even wealthier during the pandemic. So you're not going to seeing like the Uber multiple 7-figure price point up much change, but I think you're going to see in like the $600,000 to $2 million price point, you're going to see a lot of buyers drop out, and there's not going to be a lot of buyer pool demand for this type of property because for one, many of them are already educated individuals. They bought their property that they're going to buy for their long-term property when interest rates were low in expectation that this was coming, and also there's a lot of fear on what's going to happen with property valuations right now. So usually these mid to upper side luxury properties that's not at like the real high price point are what are going to get hit the first. Are hit hardest the first. Now, on the lower property price points, you're not going to see too much change because they're based off replacement value and cash flow values. And so like sub 200, you're not going to see property values change that much. So there's going to be, obviously some fluctuations, but not like you're going to see a $1 million house go to like 800,000 in a very short time, or certain things like worse when we saw Vegas and things like that, the last crash. Mm-hmm. So I'd be watching days on market in your areas on those probably 600 to 1.5 million, maybe $2 million price points, watching how many price reductions are happening. Are they sitting on the market or is there a lot of demand? Now, the next thing is think about your location. So I hear a lot of y'all are going to hear things all over the news that may not even affect you or apply to you. And this is very important so you don't let yourself get consumed with fear. You may be in a market that actually does okay, no matter how bad it gets around the world. You could literally have cities burning down around you, but because you have 3 big businesses coming into your part of the country or wherever you live, you may just be in the right area where your area is going to stay strong, may actually even grow through this, may stay flat or barely regress through this. So don't panic, guys. Look at each opportunity as they come across loss in your local area and just kind of pay close attention to the data. But the second thing is, I would think about, if you're an agent, thinking about understanding investing. And on the investing side, when the agent side of the business gets tough, this side picks up. So it's always a give or take. It's just like when you're playing options in the stock market, you can play puts and calls. Same thing in the real estate market. There's opportunities on the way up and down. So don't think that just because there's a recession coming that you can't make a fortune. In fact, the people that know how to are going to create bigger net worths through this correction than they could in an up market. And these are some of the things that you can learn from us that we're going to teach you guys on how to look at your investment business and your production business. And this is what we talk about in our organization. And also, we're going to be doing a 4-week investment seminar, private accelerator program for anybody that wants to, that you can invite them to Bonita on how to flip houses, financing sources, construction side of things, how to put a house back together in the right order, how to understand how to work with contractors, how to sell the house, how to market for deals, and kind of anything and everything all in between. So we're going to be doing a lot of this type of stuff, but there is going to be some type of correction at some point. It's needed, actually. So this is natural. And if you're in real estate, you're going to go through multiple ones in your career. So instead of just thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a danger for me or something that I'm going to, have to battle, look at it as a character building opportunity, because the skill sets that you build going through this are going to relate and amplify big time once we get through it, come out the back end. So most corrections like this are usually 2 years or less. So we're already fairly deep into it. I know things are getting crazy right now. Stock market's getting crazy. We're coming into midterms. Just focus on what you guys can do. Keep your head down, work hard. And so that in a year or two, when all this kind of comes out the back end, your skill sets are higher. You battle through the storm, and the light at the end of the tunnel is starting to get bright when the storm passes over, and you're positioned to capture market share as the market comes back. Because the people that wait for all the good news to come on the media and, hey, everything's back and going together and the whole world's good now, it's going to take them time to get plugged back in, build their resources back up, get their things back, and they're going to miss a big market share growth. So the way that people get wealthy is they take it on the chin on the way down. They never get out of the game, so they don't have to get lucky timing the market on the way up because they never left the game. That makes sense. So grit it out on the way down, push through it so that you time it perfectly, and you're going to explode with a full bull run for the next market share run from the bottom to the top. So the way you win in business and get lucky is you just never take your butt off the pedal and you never take a day off. That way you're hitting every opportunity that comes across that you're prepared for it.
Right. And that's why I really, really appreciate the WolfPack, because you guys teach us that on a weekly basis, and it helps us to keep motivated and to keep going as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I feel frustrated sometimes because I'm not trying to be insensitive to people, but I think this is a good opportunity for business owners it's going to be in disguise, I guess you could say. In the beginning, it's going to be tough to see the opportunity because we're fixated on the horrors around us, the things that are negative around us. But if you can see and read between the lines, you will find massive opportunities. And I think that your opportunity here to create massive wealth for your family is going to be about the biggest we'll have in our lifetime at some point during this correction. So I think this is a great opportunity for business. It's going to take a little time for people to realize that and to spot these opportunities, but keep your head on the ground. And so I try to encourage people to not be panicked, but to capture the opportunities, because if all they see is destruction, they're going to not put their time into their business, and then they're not going to be there when the opportunities pop up, if that makes sense.
Right. I think that there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth right now. And so,
yep. For sure.
Okay, so you have touched so many people's lives, Connor, mine in particular. So what motivates you to keep going? And, even though you don't have to, in light of your great success.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that I think, for one, money was never my motivation. I know it sounds like cliche, but making impact was. So your goals are going to be hit easier and much faster if your goals are to support someone else or a group of people or the world. If your goal is to buy materialistic stuff and get vanity metrics hit, you're probably not going to hit some big goals. That can help you in the beginning, but after you have your first money, you realize that, hey, money's not that important and money doesn't make you happy. Now, that being said, money doesn't make you happy, but not having money can definitely make you unhappy. So I want to make sure to clarify that for a lot of people is money solves problems for you quicker, but when you don't have it, you have real stresses about where your bills are coming from. So it can also cause, so the money picture is very important. Now, I made a bunch of money, Bonita, when I was playing online poker when I was a young kid, and I went through that young money phase. Someday I'll pull out my photos. I had diamond watches and diamond pinky rings, and I thought I was just, I was such a tool, believe it or not. When I go back, looking back, I was so immature. But I was buying cars. I was 19 to 21, making $100,000 in college. So I was having fun, and I was spending it everywhere and dropping $1,000 a night at bars. And what I realized was when you buy nice things and you buy cars and you buy jewelry and all this, it's not like what you were expecting it to be when the first time you do it. And so I'd already kind of gone through that phase where you're trying to get to a point where you hit your goals. But now when you do this, not only do the people you're trying to impress around you, they're not impressed, they actually hate you for it. And now it starts to create problems, and people resent you for it, if that makes sense. So I learned all my new money mistakes early on at a young age. So then when I made my second net worth, I guess you could say, I realized that money was not that important to me, that helping others was. And part of it was because when I went through that big issue where I had to move back home with my parents and I kind of got lost for a couple of years, it was a very tough time for me, where I battled mentally. I've been pretty open about it on my channel. I actually almost got to it. I was at a suicidal point where I didn't want to be here anymore. And the reason why I didn't want to be here anymore was because in the future, looking ahead, I didn't see any future that was worth living, because I felt that the best future the best days of my career were behind me, and I never thought I could do something bigger going forward. And so once I kind of got out of that moment and I became successful along the way and been able to accomplish things I have, looking back, it terrified me knowing how many people are caught in that spot, if that makes sense, that could be someone very impactful for the world that could help so many others tomorrow. But if they do that today, they can't. And what I was trying to do is help a lot of these people out of this darkness. For one, that's why the new channel I'm starting, why I'm talking about it a lot like that. But also, I'd lost a couple friends over the past few years because of the pandemic. All these lockdowns made it, mental health issues kind of pick up. So that's one of the big reasons I want to get back and keep going, for one, to help that way. Second, I think we have big educational issues in this country right now. I believe that entrepreneurs are the key to the future, and independent wealth creation is going to fix the problems that we have, not taking wealth from people and putting everybody else in a negative situation. And so this notion that wealthy people are evil is just a lack of education. Most wealthy people make the world go round. Wealthy people write the checks. Wealthy people, keep the businesses going, keep us being employed. Now, if you're a bad wealthy person, yeah, you're a problem. Now, if you're a good wealthy person, you're the solution. So I think we're heading in a wrong direction in this country and around the world with the mentality of how people see their life, which is a participation event, not a competition. And if you don't know you're in a competition and you're in a participation event, the people that understand this is a competition are going to crush you, and they're going to take your opportunities left and right, and you're going to feel like you're living in an unfair world. So the first thing is, nobody's coming to save you except yourself. And the second thing is, you need a different education than one that you had through the government educational system. That is not treating people in a way that they should be successful independently. It's treating people in a way that they should plug into a system, into an overall mass structure, like a matrix, right? So I didn't want to have people plug into a system and hurt their future lifestyles and the paths that they could go down with their families, because I know they can do so much more. So I want to try to get to a lot of these younger individuals in our world, and really anybody, but primarily the younger class coming up, meaning that didn't have parents, or that grew up with one parent, or grew up with bad parents, or didn't have the ability to have a good education, and they felt like they didn't have a chance in life to have the success that others have. And so I'm trying to help that side of our country, helping young people get a better education on how to get into business and do it correctly, so they don't take the risks that I did and make all the mistakes I did and almost destroy my life, because I could have easily. So I got lucky to come out of it. Mm-hmm. So that's one of them. And then the third one is, in this business model here, I can help my partners get pulled across the finish line differently than I could in other businesses that I built. Because as an investor, I could just go buy rental properties and buy another one. As an investor, I could just go flip another house, but that's just my personal benefit. It's my personal bank account. Whereas I came from team sports, I was a quarterback. I played sports my whole life. And when I went out of sports into college and into my early adult career building days, even when I played poker, as a solopreneur type of thing, if that makes sense. So when I got back into the team building side of things, I realized now that experiences I've had, struggles I've had, dollars that I've created, and time that I can give can now help partners that I have, like back in when I was in sports. It created that team building mentality. And I have just the belief that, team before me, no man left behind type of mentality. Whereas now I feel like I can impact others and help them get pulled across the finish line. So I've already made my financial side of things work for myself. So now my goal is to help others do the same. And then the only thing I ask for others as I help them become successful is that they keep in the mentality that they're going to do the same thing for others, and that they're going to be a good person in their community. They're going to give back, and they're going to mentor people along the way, and they're going to do what I'm doing, which is kind of how a big team grows. Starts out small. Through duplication, you trade life experiences and education and skill sets to those, so that they can duplicate and do it to others. And just like a big team through an override model like ours starts out small and grows big, my goal is on a worldwide level to start out small, to help entrepreneurs have the best practices, but over time, as they become successful, to grow like a network marketing team, I guess you could say, to helping others and having more people with the right mentality of helping others, not hurting others, because we're living in this world of division right now. And I don't think people really believe that we're as divided as we think we are, but we're being told we are all over the media, all over everything every day, when most people love each other. They don't hate each other, but we're being told to do so. So I want to try to do my best to help kind of fight the tide and kind of turn things back around. And this is the only way I know how to do it, is to get out here, help as many people as I can create independent wealth, but also understand the right way to be a good person in the community, and then teach these lessons on my YouTube channel and on social media to get the biggest footprint out there. So that's kind of like an aha moment, or like the overall like reasons why I'm doing this, because once you guys become successful financially, you're going to have to find something else that motivates you, and helping people that you care about is probably the best thing you could do.
So you mentioned your new YouTube channel, which I wanted to talk to you about, because you did have Investor Army, which is the #1 residential real estate investment YouTube channel in Texas, and you have almost 41,000 subscribers. So why did you start the new channel and just start over from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. So like I've been doing that Investor Army channel for probably 4 or so years. And then when the pandemic happened, I got locked down. I was actually quarantined in my girlfriend's condo. So I was stuck in a little condo and I didn't have all my equipment. I didn't have all my filming studio. I didn't have, the ability to create content like I wanted to. And remember what happened? It was kind of like we were told we're going to be in this for 2 weeks. We're going to have a little lockdown. And here we are, like 20 years later, it feels like. Just kidding. But we were told something that was just simply not true. And so what happened was I was not expecting to kind of have my businesses disrupted the way they were. And then as this kind of sank in and the lockdowns kind of kicked in, as you can imagine, I have businesses with employees. I have a big team. I have properties that I own. I have tenants, and the world kind of shut down overnight. And so I had to take a lot of time off that channel to solve a lot of real life problems behind the scenes that I was being forced to solve, which I still believe I shouldn't have had to deal with all this. So that's a whole nother podcast if you ever want to go down that rabbit hole. But so that was one of the big things, was time limitations, the ability for me to film the content that I wanted on that channel. I couldn't do it. And the third thing was, over the years, as the eXp opportunity for us grew, my identity of who I saw myself as was moving from the investor side of things, which is where most people would see me from, as an investor, but I've always been more of an entrepreneur. So even as I've been investing, I've always had multiple businesses. And so the other thing was that on my investment channel, I couldn't talk about what we're doing with some of our other businesses, because imagine if it's an insurance channel and all you're talking about is real estate. People on insurance aren't going to want to follow you. So even though the real estate agent side of business and the investing side of business is both in real estate, so is baseball and football. They're both in the sports space, if that makes sense. So they're completely contrary to each other, even though some people play football and baseball, some people do both. So I was losing my audience by posting out there about eXp, and then a lot of stuff happened. So I took a lot of time off from social media. So I decided to take a 6-month hiatus and just disappear off the internet and really kind of readjust my life and reset my life and decide what I wanted to do and what was important for me, because I don't think people understand it's a choice for me to go on the internet and do this. And I want you guys watching this, not for me, just in general, for these creators, the successful ones, the actual real business owners behind the scenes, not the fake gurus, which most of them, but the ones that really run businesses. They're voluntarily putting this information on the internet. I know some of you guys are gonna be like, well, you guys are gonna make more money. Well, some of us don't need more money. Some of us are trying to make an impact. So you want to follow the people that can be supportive. But I wasn't able to do the things I was wanting to on that channel. Plus, at the same time, I kind of capped out market share on it. The investment space is not a very big space, so I kind of started to see it flatline. So these are all certain reasons where I knew I needed to, kind of what we talked about, why I started my other channel, create a new channel. But I wasn't even sure I wanted to even get back into social media all the way like I was. But after having a bunch of time off to kind of clear my mind, after being so entrenched in everything for years, I just realized that, at some level I'm going to have to do this regardless. It's kind of like a business owner has to have a website. You have to be on social media. Plus, I need to do this for a lot of reasons. But I was getting boxed in on things I was trying to do over there. So it was a tough thing, because I love the Investor Army channel, I love doing it, but I wasn't able to do all these other things over here. So I was trying to decide, do I shut this one down, or do I just create another one and do both? And so where I kind of got to is I'm going to keep on doing my Investor Army channel. So that one's still going, but I started creating a personal branded channel on overall business and entrepreneurship, because what was happening on Investor Army was I'd have someone that was in an insurance space, or a doctor or an attorney that's not trying to buy real estate, come across one of my videos randomly. And if it was an entrepreneurship channel, they would have stayed and followed. But since they thought it was just about real estate investing, they wouldn't stay and follow the channel. So by over here, making it about overall entrepreneurship, communication skill sets, time management, leadership, prospecting, conversation control, personal development, mindset, physical conditioning, things like this, I can go over on this channel to apply to every industry, every business model, where over here I was limited to. Also, long-term, the investment of my time, energy, and dollars put into this channel would be not the highest return on those investments long-term as it would be in the entrepreneurship space, because if I'm tied to the investor market over here, look at the market share. Now I have dental businesses, social media businesses, attorney businesses, everything. So the overall entrepreneurship space over here is like this. So long term, when I looked at it, how do I have the best impact to make an impact for others? How do I have the best impact on my businesses to create the highest income, which I can cycle back in to do what we just talked about? And then how do I, basically not pigeonhole myself going forward, where name recognition is becoming a big thing. And that was the last one. Was I was getting stopped at airports, and I get stopped at random restaurants all over the country, and people would come up and they'd be like, "It's Investor Army." They'd even be humming my tune, and then they wouldn't even know my name. Someone would be like, "So what actually is your name?" And I'd be like, "Holy crap." And I built this brand around Investor Army where people knew me all around the world, but they didn't even know me. So that was eye-opening to me. And then, our partner, Mike Sherrard, who's helped so many people on social media. And
I think I know him.
I think you guys know Mike. It's a big risk. So I always knew that I needed to start a personal branded channel. I think everybody should have a personal branded channel. It's even more so evident now going forward over the past few years that more people start a personal branded channel and not instead of an industry channel. But for someone like me, it's a big risk to do so because I have to go through and do it again. And I still have to pull it off instead of just keep on growing this one. But I realized that I needed to do this at some point, and I was just like, why not just go ahead and do it right now when the world's chaotic and everything's chaos right now? So this would be the best time to launch it. But those are all reasons why I made that decision. And so if you guys are in a decision-making process where you're feeling caught with one channel, or you're trying to think, should you start another channel? The time element to create another channel is not that high because your time is in the content creation. You're just posting on a different channel. You're still creating thumbnails, title tags. All you just need to do is set up a new channel and basic set up channel art and stuff like that. I would suggest if you guys don't have one, probably think about a long-term personal branded channel. And then if you have industry-specific channels, keep on growing those, but figure out a way to do both. But long-term, your personal brand is going to have the highest return on it and also the lowest risk of running into things like I did that I didn't know I was going to run into until 4 or 5 years down the road, which is something that you don't know until you start something, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of those things.
And the content on the new channel is amazing. I've watched the videos over and over and over again because I firmly believe if you want to get somewhere, you find somebody that's already there and do what they did. So I love the concept that you have with the new channel is that you start from step one and you take us through your journey to show us how you got to where you are. And so one of the valuable lessons that I found is that you talk about the difference between results-oriented goal setting and activity-oriented goal setting. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So business is a pressure test more than a skill set test. A lot of times people think you need to be highly intelligent and you need to have all these different high-level educations behind you to be successful in business, and they had to come from a good upbringing and have money behind them. It's just simply not the case. What makes someone successful in business is persistency, patience, and the ability to just show up and get up once you get knocked down. And so when I was looking at kind of how people create self-esteem and how they destroy self-esteem, it's very important to understand. I'm going to give you an example here on how people reflect back at themselves after they take an action. I mean, just kind of refresh and start here from a different angle. So growing any business is going to be mentally tough to do so. And what I didn't realize early on was that business is not what you're talking about. Once again, these other things, intelligence. It's about a mindset test, meaning how tough are you and how can you keep your belief system on what you're doing and also who you are. So self-esteem is the core root of anything that's built. If you don't believe that the girl is going to say yes when you go ask her out because you don't believe in yourself or you hate yourself, you're not going to go ask them out. If you don't believe that client that has $1 million house would ever list with you, you're going to go try to do 250K price points and not go to the $1 million price point. So our self-esteem is directly related to our income based off the actions that we can take relating to risk. Now, one of the ways that I realized how self-esteem can be eliminated is the reflective thoughts that we tell ourselves after we take an action. So if you guys want to write this down, I did this on our shareholder speech at eXp. There's a 3-step process where you're going to have a conscious thought first, then you're going to take an action with your physical body, meaning make the phone call, say whatever, show up at the podcast, and then you're going to have a reflective thought on kind of how you look at what you actually did. So the example I give is let's say you're trying to get into better physical condition and you're working out. Here's the 2 different conversation flows you go through, and this will explain the activity results-oriented goals. So let's say my goal is to get in shape, and I've been working on this for 2 months, and I'm getting there, and I'm starting to have great results. And then I go to a realtor Christmas party, and there's something good over here, carrots, celery sticks, and then there's all the cookies, cakes, and pies. Now, the thought first is I'm working on my goals. I'm trying to have better habits. I'm trying to be disciplined. I'm actually getting great results, but that cake looks good. So you say, don't eat the cake. And then what do? You pick the cake up, and then you pound the cake, and then the cookies and the pizza and everything else. Now, the problem is when we go opposite what we needed to do and we do what we wanted to do, usually pleasure of the flesh or some type of something that's short-term in the short term, not the long-term, really what we're trying to accomplish. What do we now do? Why did you just eat the cake? You were working so good for 2 months and now you have a low results. Now you think you can eat everything because you lost fat, so we do this. And this is why people fluctuate with goals and income like this in waves, because they start to have results. Yep. And it's starting and stopping because now they're like, I just lost 15 pounds. I have a little leeway. And then it leads towards the negative habit. Now the next day you eat more and it goes back. But now so when you do that, the negative reflective talk is self-esteem destroying. You're not disciplined. You don't have control of your own decisions. You're a victim of food. You're not even stronger than a piece of cake, right? These are unconscious thoughts that we're telling ourselves. Now flip to the other side. First up, thought, action, reflective thought after action. Don't eat the cake. I pick the cake up. I want to focus on my goals, my future more than I care about eating this cake. I want to make sure that when I make money and have a great life for my family, that I'm around for my family and I don't pass away at a young age because I'm just eating all these things all the time. And I decide because of those thoughts, I put the cake down. And now the reflective thought after that is, great job. You're strong. You operate in an area of discipline right now on this. You're a person of habit. You're in control, not the cake. So who do you think is going to have a better self-image of themselves? Someone who's not as strong as a piece of cake or someone who's stronger than a piece of cake, right? So when you do the need and not the want, we have the positive self-reflective talk. Now, when we go to activity goals versus results-oriented goals, what an activity goal is you're setting a goal based off the activity that you're trying to hit for the week. Let's say my goal is to have 5 seller appointments with 5 listing presentations. They're 1 hour apiece. One activity goal would be, do I have 5 appointments? Let's say I meet 5 individuals. I hit 100% of my goals that week. So my self-reflective thought is, here's my goal for the week, 5 activity goals. Activity, I hit all 5. Reflective thought is, I'm working, I'm hitting my goals, I'm disciplined. Now let's look at a results-oriented goal. Same 5 people, same 5 appointments. We didn't talk about anything based off the results. And this is where most people stay in business, which is why they are so burnt out and frustrated, because if you're based off results-oriented goals, your goal is now to build your self-esteem or your reflective thought on, did they say yes or no to letting you list their house?
Right.
Now let's say you talk to 5 homeowners and all 5 say yes, you can list the house. Now the reflective thought is, I did great, everything's working good in my business, I did what I was supposed to, I had a win. But what if they all say no, and you had 5 that say no? Now your reflective thought is, oh my gosh, I'm not doing well, I'm not performing, I'm wasting time, I'm wasting money. So you're tying your goal setting to the results side of the business instead of the activity side of the business. So the problem is, in business, you're going to fail so much more in everything that you do than when you're going to win. You know, baseball analogies, in baseball, professional baseball, if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're batting 300, you're pretty much going to get paid, I think, $4 million a year or something. I looked last time I looked. That's a big income for failing 70% of the time. Now in business, if we're telling ourselves a negative reflective thought every time we have something as a result that didn't go the way we wanted it to go, we're constantly beating ourselves down. So let's say those 5 appointments, nobody joined us. Man, my business isn't doing good. Why are my skill sets not there? I'm struggling. What can I do better next time? So these thoughts start to chip away on our positivity, our self-esteem, and our mindset is what keeps us moving forward in business. Whereas this over here, you had the same appointments, your reflective thought is, I'm hitting 100% of my goals because I showed up every time. And if you focus only on hitting your activity goals, if you hit enough of them in a row, your skill sets get built while you're showing up at the activity. So therefore your results-oriented goals, your conversion rates will go up naturally. And also you're going to protect your mindset as you're going through this, because don't worry about the results. They always come later. But what you should worry about is showing up and hitting what you're trying to do on a weekly basis. And also by setting activity goals, you're more likely to set them into your schedule ahead of the week, and you're more likely to hit your goals. Because if your goal is to, let's add an agent this week, how are we going to get there? But if your goal is, I'm going to have 5 agent conversations no matter what this week, well, out of those, probably an agent's going to join you or multiple, if that makes sense. So it's so important to protect your mindset and your success rate on the conversion rate, to think of it that way.
Yeah, and speaking of conversions, that's another valuable lesson that you've taught us, how to increase our sales conversions through the decision triangle. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so kind of like how I created the wealth quadrant, I created a number of different things. One is the decision triangle. So what a decision triangle is there's 3 things, 3 kind of characteristics of how people would make a decision on to buy something, to join an opportunity, or to risk anything as far as a risk that they could give up in life. Emotion, time, money, which are the 3 things we talk about in the decision triangle. So dollars or money is over here. Time is one point of the triangle, and emotion or stress or why is the other point of the triangle. And what this is explaining is that in sales, which is what we're all in business, that people make decisions to buy something or to join an opportunity based off one of these 3 things. And sometimes one is stronger than the other. Sometimes 2 of these things overweigh the other. And so for a couple examples, we either make decisions based off of money, time, or emotion. So here would be a common one where someone would make a decision in relationship off money or time differently. People that have made money or people that have a high net worth look at time more importantly than money. People who don't have a big net worth yet look at money as more important than time. So let's say I want to have Taco Bell tonight. I'm sitting at home and I have the choice to either get in my car and drive to Taco Bell and pick it up and drive home, or I can pay Uber Eats $15 to go get that for me. Somebody who has money is going to look more at based off time. They're going to say I make $200 an hour. So there, if I spend 30 minutes to go get this food, I'm spending an hour or $100 of monetary value that could trade into the time. So it doesn't make sense, because now they can pay someone $15 and have an $85 net relationship between time and money in that relationship. Whereas if you're working for minimum wage and you making $15 or whatever it is an hour, let's say that to go there for 30 minutes of an hour to go get it, that's $7.50, right? Mm-hmm. So now it doesn't make sense. The money is more important than the time. So then they're going to go make a decision off of money and go get it themselves. Mm-hmm. So when you understand this, you understand how to take a conversation. Now, another way of looking at, like, let's say an emotional reason versus a time or money reason. There was a business that I ran years ago that I was making good money doing, but it was very stressful and I didn't want to do it anymore. And it was making quite a bit of money, actually. Most people would be shocked I shut that business down. Mm-hmm. So I didn't make the decision to shut it down off of money. It made plenty of money, and my time relationship to the money was fine. It was how I felt about that business, and it was how I felt about what was happening happening, which was a high-end consulting business, because I got ripped off by the high-end consulting space early on myself, which is another reason why I started all these channels. When you look into my story, and I was just thinking that, like we all do sometimes, well, I'm going to fix all these problems. And when I start my consulting business, everybody's going to make it. And what I saw was about 10% would become millionaires, and the other 90% would basically do nothing with the exact same information, the exact same system. And so what I realized was, you can teach skill sets, you can teach a lot, you can try to motivate, but you can't teach people to care about their business and show up every day. That is internally done for them, and you can explain this to them, but they have to do it. So I said, I'm not going to make a bunch of money when other people are not. And I shut that business down out of a principle thing, out of a respect for myself, and always holding my promises to myself, not based off money. Because I think people that are tied to money have miserable lives. They're always upset and they don't understand why. And they think their success and happiness and respect from others comes to their money, when really it's a shield for them, when most people don't respect them unless they're a person that should be respected, if that makes sense. But so the decision triangle is going to show you guys when you're caught into a conversation with someone, when they're fixated on one point of the triangle, meaning money, time, or emotion, you need to, through asking questions, finding out more about this person, what their interests, goals, and what they want in the future is about, how to move their attention through a pattern disruption to another part of value, which could be an emotional saving or time savings if they're fixated on dollars. So like, for example, a broker that wants to come to eXp, sometimes when we run the math, they may make like a $50,000 loss in their mind on paper up front, but they're not looking at time relationships and emotional relationships. And so for most people that struggle attracting teams to eXp, they're going to get stuck on the financial side, the dollars. But if I can sit down with this entrepreneur who's clearly open-minded to trying to see how this works for the best career over time, I can say, hey, look, I know on the paper that we just ran the numbers, you're losing 50K, but in your business, you run a different type of business model that has time and stress attached to it. Your time is going into running the office right now. You're not going to have to do this. Think about what your hourly wages compared to how many contracts you review, how many agent support questions you have, how many times you're getting sued, and all this different stuff for stress and time. So if you want to hire an employee to grow your business now, you're going to have to pay $50,000. Instead of paying $50,000 to have one employee, why don't you pay eXp $85 a month and have thousands of employees? So you start shifting their attention from what they're fixated on to, John, now if you had 10 employees, or if you had Connor and Bonita and Mike and all of us above you helping grow your business, and you could get rid of that broker recruiter that you hired at $80K a year to grow your office, you're eliminating an $80,000 expense for one recruiter, and you picked up 7 partners that are going to do the same activities. So how you create sales conversions is to move people's attention from what they're locked on, which is one point of the triangle, to the other 2 value centers that can push them past the locking point that they're on with the one, is how that's going to work. And that's going to help you increase your conversions. And then for sales conversions and lead generation, this is the last thing I'll say on this. Most people are fixated on sales, on how to grow their business based off increasing scales to grow their business. So if you're doing 1 out of 10 conversions, let's say you generate X amount of marketing a month, and when you have 10 leads come in, you close 1 out of 10. If you ask the average entrepreneur, how do you double your business? They're going to say, well, I need 20 leads on average. So they're going to spend twice as much money, twice as much time. That's not the way to double your business the fastest. The fastest way to double your business, instead of spending all the extra money and all the extra time, because what if you don't have it? You're limited on both. Why not let's figure out how to be more persuasive, how to influence better, how to communicate better, how to control conversation and close better. So on this side, why don't we close 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10? So now when we increase the conversion rate, we're not increasing the risk rate of our business, because we don't need more money to generate more leads and more time. We're already converting what's coming in. So focus on conversion. Now let's say you increase your conversion rate to 3 out of 10. Now when you take the increased conversion dollars over here, you throw it back into the generation side. Now you're generating 20 leads, but you're getting 6 out of 20 and not 2 out of 20. And I just put a video on my channel. If you go check it out, one of the recent ones, like my last 3, where I show you exactly how this works. But focus on your conversion mostly, guys, when you're new, really forever in your business. And then think of lead generation side of things second. That's how I'd say it.
Yeah, and I am going to drop Connor's links down below, so you will be able to go to his Investor Army channel if you're interested in investing, or you can go to his Connor Steinbrook, his personal channel, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, and go and subscribe. I promise you that information on both channels is invaluable. I'm going to
appreciate that.
And ask you to name one thing that fascinates you.
I have a weird hobby. I think it's weird to other people. It's not weird to me. I'm from Texas, so we're kind of outdoors people. I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad and fished a lot when I was growing up. And now that I'm a little bit older, I didn't grow up with a lot of financial means. We couldn't afford boats and all this type of stuff. So now that I've gotten a little bit older and financially successful, I've kind of got back into my childhood hobby. And so I like to go out and go fishing. And there's a lot of reasons why. You're not just sitting there like on a dock with a bobber and a lawn chair with your feet kicked up. Like, I do this for numerous reasons. So for number one, it's my physical activity for the day most of the time. I'm putting like a 50-pound backpack on and I'm walking around like an over mile track in the heat. And it's actually how I lost most of this weight. So people want to know how I lost about 60 pounds. I did it mostly through fishing, which sounds crazy to people. Second thing is, I had to do it for physical issues that I've been dealing with because of my businesses. I basically been sitting at a table and a desk for years, just like many of you do. And what's happened was I've messed up my alignment with my lower back and my hips, and everything's locked up. And so by getting outside and standing all day, or getting outside for long periods of time where I stand, especially especially holding a backpack that pulls my shoulders back, it strengthened my core and allowed me to stand better. So I've been doing it in a way that's also to fix physical conditions I'm dealing with to build up those strength muscles. The third thing is I'm using it as an education opportunity. So I'm out there, I'm not just sitting there staring at the sky most of the time. Sometimes I do. What I'm also doing is I'm listening to my self-development during this time. I'm taking my headphones, I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'm going to explain something here at the end why this is so powerful. And the next thing I'm doing is I'm doing this as a strategy for me to clear my mind. When you're at home and you're around the distractions of your refrigerator, from the television, from your kids, from the dogs, there's too many external things that can pull your attention away. So what I urge people to do is get outside, away from everybody, turn the phone off, turn everything off, and use this time to come up with your thinking. So thinking is the most important thing you can do in your life and in your business. And most people don't think that they don't even think. And they just float through the day. They're like, I think all the time. No, you're not. This is a conscious thought process exercise where you're actually thinking. People used to have like thinking rooms where they'd walk around in a circle or sit in their thinking chair, because when you have undivided attention and you think and you really focus, this is when your ideas to fix your business come from. Now, the next thing is it's for me to have a hobby and leisure time in my high-paced work life. So I'm trying to show people that you can still have all the parts of your life that you want and still get your fitness in and get to the gym, your hobby time in and still do something fun for yourself. And you don't just have to sit there in a room 16, 18 hours a day hating your life as an entrepreneur. You can have a balanced life, but you're going to have to control it. And the way that you control it is doing time compression activities, meaning multiple activities that you would do individually, one-offs, but combine them in one. So I could go to the gym and do a cardio activity 1 hour for that one activity. I could listen to an audio tape at my desk, one podcast while I'm sitting at my desk. If I do these two things at one time, I just increased a free hour of my life because I compressed 2 different 1 hour activities into one time. Now I've put my rehabilitation time in there. There's 3 activities. Now I put my relaxation time in there. So I'm basically getting 4 to 5 hours of life growth for personal development in all areas of my life with every hour that I spend. So what I'm trying to do is find ways to have a balanced life, but do multiple things at one time where I'm getting multiple things in. That's how you increase the time in your day and have all these things accomplished, but also still hit your big financial goals. But that's a weird goal. Or the weird thing I do is I like to fish, but also that's kind of an understanding of why I do it that way. But I want you to think if there's a hobby that you can do for yourself in a way like that. And also the last thing is try to think of one that's outside, because getting outside has made me, for one, a lot better shape, 2, a lot healthier. And there's all sorts of studies coming out now that being in the sun increases like testosterone levels and all sorts of vitamin levels and things like that you're going to feel better, be healthier, and have a healthier life if you don't just sit inside in front of technology, lights, and all this stuff that's probably causing us cancer, unfortunately, that hopefully we don't see here in the next 10, 20 years. Those are all reasons to pick a hobby, pick it outside.
Now, if you could do one thing in the world right now with no obstacles to stop you, what would that be?
First thing that popped in my head is I would be doing something where I can fix these easy problems to be fixed, and getting the people out of there that are not trying to fix the problems but cause problems is kind of what it feels like, right? Because it's like, are we doing things to actually help our future here, or are we doing things that are like kind of not to, is what it feels like. It's kind of like if you're marketing and you can market for something that's like $10 to put a piece of marketing out there, but now you're spending $1,000 to do it. Why would I spend $1,000 to do something I can do for $10? And there's a lot of that stuff happening. It just doesn't make sense. And the reason why I focus on this, and a lot of successful people focus on the future, is because we focus on the future with our goal setting to become successful financially. But once you become successful, you want to protect it. So the fear of becoming successful is not as high as once you become successful, the fear of losing it, which is what people don't realize. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're looking at all the rules that you have to play by, all the taxing situations. So you're trying to play by the rules, but you're trying to figure out how long-term do I have the most successful business? Do I help the country the most? And so you're looking ahead of these things, and you see all these regulations changing and things that make it more difficult for business owners. You have to ask yourself, why is it happening that way? And so those are some things that like I, as well as like a lot of people in this country that have become financially independent, are trying to figure out how to make an impact over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, so that when we do leave this world, if we have children and families and everybody behind us, that we leave the world better than when we came into it. And that I didn't just show up to your house and leave a whole bunch of mess there, that I actually left it a little cleaner than I showed up, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like my goal, is to help other people kind of figure out their situation in life and do better in life so that they can help others, and also start fixing some of the problems that I can do throughout my life that I'll try to figure out how I can do it along the way. I don't really want to be president. I want to make an impact. It's kind of it's an analogy. I just want to help kind of fix these problems. I'd do it for free even. If they called me up there and said, come do these things for free, I'd work for free. Yeah, I was going to say, if you plan on doing a 1-page tax code, I'll go for you. I mean, like, seriously, like, and we're not going to page is all it takes. I mean, when you think about it, it's like, why does somebody get taxed more than someone else? If we're here, so you pay your fair share. If you guys knew my fair share, you would throw up. It's not fair at all. It's not. I didn't cheat to get here. I played by every rule. I never hurt anybody. I never scammed anybody. I never did anything wrong. And it's frustrating because I would use the extra money that I feel is being taken from me to hire more people, to do more for others, to reinvest in my partners, but it's going to somewhere where I don't know where it's going. And I see it going over countries to all sorts of places right now. I'm like, why is my money going to do all these things and not going to the people struggling in my own country? Let's fix our own country first, then we can figure out how to fix the world. That's kind of how your mentality with your life should be. I've talked about this in the past. Fix your own life problem first, then help fix your family, your main family, your kids, your parents, then go to your cousins, and then to your friends. And then if you're doing a job and this is all getting fixed and situated and everybody's having great lives, then start figuring out how to help your community locally, your schools, like your kids' school, doing things locally for the fire department, maybe even run for local politics. And then the next thing is, how do you help on a state level, then a national level, and then a global level? You don't just go from like not having a good life yourself to just fixing the world like some people think they're going to do, which is like crazy. You start out small and you develop along the way. But I think just if more people had that mentality, let's fix my internal life and then grow out over their life, you're going to have more people show up 10, 20, 30 years in the future where they're ready to do things that can now impact others and help the country. I think a lot of stuff's going to get figured out over time. I think there needs to be a lot of shifting in who's up there. I think there's a lot of problems for business owners long term based off career politicians and things like that over time, lots of restrictions on certain industries. And I think that if you had the right entrepreneurs or the right individuals running certain parts of different things, you'd see a lot more growth, and then people wouldn't have to be worrying about all the stuff that we're worrying with right now.
Okay. Tell me one thing about you that I guess you sort of touched on it earlier, but I just wanted to know one thing about you that would surprise other people. So I think you really covered that with the vision. Is there something else?
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot because it's not my job to impress these things, but I'm the son. My dad's a Presbyterian minister, so I grew up in the church. So that kind of shocks a lot of people. And I think I don't talk a lot about it a lot because it's not my job to impress upon people my belief system, but it's my job to live a good life. And if people like the way I live my life, then they can say, why does he live his life that way? And maybe they can see, some learning experiences in my life. But I grew up in the church and I fell away from my faith for many, many years. And then I came back to the church later in my life. And that's when my life turned around, just to be honest. It was the years when I abandoned my faith that everything fell apart for me. And that's a true story. So I think a lot of people should be doing more reflection on who they are, what they believe, what's coming forward in the future, and why we're all here in the first place. And it's not so we can play video games and watch, TikTok reels and things like that. There's a reason you exist in this consciousness, in this physical world that we all share together. And it's your job to go figure that out in life and figure out how to figure out who you are and what you want in life, and do it soon so you can have a better life. I did grow up in the church, and so that's something that I don't talk about a lot. It's kind of a, unique thing that gives me a different perspective on how to live life that I think people probably don't hear a lot from me, because I don't talk about that a lot. But I think the way the world's moving right now, I think people really need to think how they want to live their life over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And it's the decision you make today and kind of plant your flag in today on the ground. And the decisions you make going forward is going to show, or it's going to have a massive relationship to where you show up in the future in the next 10, 20, 30 years, not just with your financial success, but with your emotional success, how you feel in your own body about yourself. And so I would just urge all of you to, whatever you believe, just believe in one thing, that if you become successful, that you do what you can to help others, and you don't treat people beneath you as you come on the way up. Because this is one of the things I've seen with a lot of young people that become successful, is they look at others as beneath them now, and it causes a lot of problems in it for them personally, and also our world as a whole. And if everybody that became successful looked at themselves as just financially successful, but there's all these other parts of life, physical fitness, relationship goals, community goals, that it's not just your financial success that makes you perfect in the world, which is what sometimes people think. You have to be a well-rounded individual in all these other areas of life. And when you're not so fixated on financial goals, but all goals, now you're really making an impact. And I think that more people should, because I've been around a lot of successful people that get there where they think they made it and it's fine and they don't need to get back. It's not fine. Right. You got to where you got to because other people helped you. And if everybody didn't just get to where they got to and close the door and did the same thing that their mentors and partners did for them, more people would have this opportunity. And you are seeing this. You're seeing, because of social media, more people get out there on the internet. Like, you wouldn't normally be able to learn from a lot of people, such as like myself or other people that built successful businesses previously before the internet, because unless you knew them as a person, as a friend or family member, or you came across them in life, you wouldn't learn from them. So now there's a lot more people coming out. That's also why you're seeing a big boom in entrepreneurship and a lot more people on social media and things like that. So ultimately, people's businesses are the way to create their financial freedom. So I would be focusing on, if you guys are watching this, how to create a residual income stream, how to understand how 3 income streams work together, how to understand how different time planes, meaning past, the present, and the future, work together, because you need to understand that everything in the future that you want can only be attained in the future. So the car you want, the house you want, the lifestyle, the clothes, boyfriend or girlfriend, it's all in the future. And the only way to get to what you want in the future is to make radical changes in the present. And so some of the things we went over here today, guys, is just touching 101 on a a lot of different stuff. So if you want to learn this type of stuff all the time, this is what we do for our partners. You can come over here and work with us. You kind of get to learn and go through your journey in business along the way with us and kind of experience what we help with our agents with. I think there's going to be something that you guys can learn in this and apply in your business either way, regardless.
Yeah. Connor, you're a mentor to me. You're a business partner to me. And I reluctantly call you a business coach because I haven't paid you a dime, and I can't tell you how much money I've spent on coaching and training, and that training wasn't a fraction of what you guys have given us or me since I came to this company. So I appreciate you so much. You have made such a significant impact on my business and my life and my mindset over the past 18 months. So I cannot thank you enough. And I thank you for coming here today and sharing, a few minutes with us. God has truly blessed my life with you. And guys, I'm going to drop again Connor's social media links below. Go follow him on Investor Army for tips, tricks, and strategies to kill the investment game, and follow his personal channel, Connor Steinbrook. If you're an entrepreneur that wants to start, scale, or grow a large team or a business, Connor's the person that you need to be following. He'll show you the process from start to finish.
Well, thank you, Bonita. And I'll leave you guys with one last thing. It's important what she's saying there. If you look at my story, I went almost $100,000 debt, partly because of lead generation mistakes, marketing mistakes, but also educational mistakes. And I think a lot of people do as well. And I was putting money up for these big gurus. And you hear what Bonita's saying is that, what we're doing is a lot higher value. The reason why it's higher value is because when you're working with a partner, not just us, but let's say you're in a different industry like insurance, you're learning from them, not because they're trying to sell product or service to you to get a sale real quick and never hear from you again. You're learning from them because they're building a long-term business with you. You're a partner with them, if that makes sense. So they're actually investing in you to give you educational skill sets that will actually create a career and make money, not just to trick you into buying something off the internet to get a quick sale and never hear from you again. So the difference in the way that education is created is completely different. So a lot of people create home study courses just to get something up and sell it, not to actually benefit the person as far as doing something of value. So if you are younger right now, I would not go to some big stage selling guru, some $25 to $50 to $100,000 course, whatever. Use YouTube, free resources, find the real entrepreneurs. You'll find them. You have to watch a number of videos and verify that they're real. And the second thing you need to do is just find the industry that you're interested in being in. So let's say you're in the insurance space, or let's say that you're in the real estate space. Join a company where you're going to get someone above you that you can learn from, like what we're doing. So if real estate's not your thing, don't worry about it. If real estate is your thing, reach out to Bonita. You can come work with us, but learn from someone within the business as a mentor and as a partner that you're sharing an income stream with, because they have a way bigger incentive to help you than someone that's you're their income stream for them, if that makes sense, where they're just selling something to you. And you're going to get a lot higher level education in whatever industry or business you're in, and it's done with it for the best practices.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Connor.
All right, thanks, Bonita.